Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. And we've been on the golf course this week. We're going to still be on the golf course. Of course, the SA Open's coming up, and we will be following that for you in our Friday preview. We've been on the rugby fields, and tonight we're going track and field. And it's always great to welcome somebody on the show who's been there, done that, but then most importantly is putting something back into the sport that he loves. Matthew Quinn, welcome to tonight's program. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, and thanks so much for having me on the show.
Right, let's get straight into it, Matthew. Where did the love for athletics from your side start?
We all did schools athletics. We all ran those inter-schools, inter-house, and I don't know, just that love of running and I suppose winning absolutely drove me to have a passion for it. I played rugby, I played cricket, I played hockey. I mean, I think I did more sports in my matric year than subjects at school, but it really was just about being fast and winning races and that excitement you've got as an individual, winning a race and having that credit and that glory that I did it. And it's not like a rugby team and the fly-off gets the ball, kicks it, and the wing runs and scores, because I was always the wing running, chasing the ball. As a track athlete, you were running 100 meters. You were the fastest guy. Everyone knew it. That drive and the passion and why I loved athletics.
One of the things that I remember from my days at school was that you had no choice. You had to do some form of athletics, whether it was your woodwork master chasing you around a hockey or a rugby field, making you run laps of 400 meters. And every single person had to be involved in that early athletics meeting at the beginning of the year, whether it was on a grass track or some people were lucky enough to have it on an asphalt track. But yet, in South Africa, it seems as though the likes of rugby, cricket and soccer kind of take over as many of the school pupils move along. But you are on a quest to change that, aren't you?
100%. I mean, rugby started last week. I mean, I've got schools that are telling me their guys are committed to rugby already, and we're in February. Rugby, and well done to them. Rugby has created such an amazing product, and I can't be upset with them. They really have done well, but athletics has allowed it to happen. So our athletes come out and they fit so much in. I think the kids have been at school for 6 weeks, and they've most probably run 10 times. Try to fit everything in as quick as possible, because then suddenly rugby starts and netball starts and hockey, the winter sports start, and they've got to move across. So we've got to challenge that as athletics. And this is the way we're trying to do it. And in driving schools athletics, getting teams involved. So it's not about the individual. It's very easy for the schools to go, don't worry, Matt runs and he represents the school, so it's fine. We're trying to drive that team environment in the schools. So that's why we're asking teams to enter, and the best team in every province will be crowned the champion of that province.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the actual events that are being put together, and wonderful as they are. But I guess athletics has got a bit of a difficult task in terms of the fact, and I don't know if it's exactly like it was Friday, but you kind of by the end of February, beginning of March, athletics was out the window and done and dusted, and you were back on the cricket fields. And then, as you say, some schools already doing rugby. It was never a year-long or even a seasonal thing lasting more than a couple of weeks. Is that still the same?
Pretty much. And athletics has allowed it to do that. So, look, as an individual, if you're an individual athlete and you've got some talent, you'll end up going all the way through, and you'll go through the rounds of district schools, then trying to qualify to represent your province, and then from there you go to the nationals. But it's always just as an individual. So if you've got a kid in your school that was the fastest, they follow that route, and then they become the school champion, then the provincial champion, and then maybe national champion. So it's never been about the team. The team sport is very seen as a very short period, very small, and that's it, done and dusted, like you said. And we haven't challenged the system since forever. Since I was at school, since you were at school, that system hasn't been challenged. So we are now going, look, guys, this is what this is all about. We need to grow athletics. And athletics is basically or fundamentally the basic of every sport.
So the fundamental basics of any sports revolves around the athletics field, track, whether it's short distance, long distance. And you might be making a controversial statement right now, but people need to realize that.
Yeah, without my sport, there would be no other sports. If you think, what I saw a saying there, what we do for fun and what we love, most people do for punishment when they do other sports. So how many times have you heard your coach say, right, we're doing laps. You didn't do this right. We're doing laps. We're doing sprints as a punishment. That's what we do for love. That's one of the hardest things out there, and that's what track and field athletes do.
In the days that you were running, many of the rugby players were extremely good sprinters in their own right. I mean, some of them that played on the wing, played at centre. In those days, you were still able to multitask, and you could be a provincial athlete as well as being a provincial and even Springbok rugby player.
Exactly. And I mean, we've seen so many. Errol Sturt, he was a top athlete, cricket player, rugby player. Tony Watson. I mean, like, okay, now we're going back to my era of looking. But I mean, even if you look at Cheslin Colby, Brian Habana, these guys were some of the top sprinters in their school. And do you know what I love it when you have conversations with these guys. The only thing, to start a debate, you just ask them, what was your 100-meter time? Who was faster? Everyone is fascinated by speed. And that's what track and field is about. You know, who runs the fastest time, who jumps further, who throws further. And, you know, athletics, you know, I think maybe we need to do a better job. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it's amazing that you say that, because if you think about it, and I mean, I think about it a lot, and I'm sure many, many people do. I guess the most watched event is the shortest event in the history, under 10 seconds, watching who's the fastest man in the world when the Olympic comes around.
Exactly. I mean, that is the most famous event. Everyone wants to know who the fastest man is. We are driven by that sort of idea. I mean, the world stands still. Yes, and most people know who the Olympic champion is, and there's more characters coming through. Yeah, and that's the beauty of it, Louis.
So let's look back at your career, if we may, before we go on to what has actually brought you about to put track and field back at schools and to bring it up. A silver and then turned into a gold in the World Athletics Championships in the relay. When you look at the way athletics is going these days compared to you ran, let's just remind everybody, you're still short of 50, so it's not like you're an aging master of the world of athletics. It's not that long ago. It's obviously changed dramatically, hasn't it?
Yes, I mean, look, athletics is a global sport. I mean, it's always going to have, it's changed, but it hasn't changed. The structures and the systems and the meetings, the same meetings I was running in Europe are the same meetings being held today. You know, the opportunities for the athletes, there's most probably more. I think the technology's improved, which makes all these kids faster. But I think the sport kind of looks like what it did. It's just easier to travel and easier to view and easier to communicate these days.
And I guess the fact that you can actually make a living out of athletics with Diamond League meetings that go on around the world, obviously all of the other invitational meetings that people are being invited to, and then World Championships and Olympics, but massive sponsorship, and you could actually make a profession out of it now, where unlike in your day, you most probably, correct me if I'm wrong, you were scraping around R1 here to get there and an airplane ticket to get to the next venue.
Look, I think, if I'm going to be honest, I think we were better looked after from the federations and from SASCOC in our day. That I think they're getting it right now. But if I listen to the athletes, they didn't get the type of support what we did. I mean, they've got better shoe deals now, better sponsors now, but from infrastructure and the federation, we were, I think, better looked after. But definitely, and athletics as a career is a massive opportunity, and there's so much talent in this country that there's so many kids that could actually look at athletics as a potential career, potential opportunity to earn money, because, you know, if we can get things right in South Africa, but the athletes compete overseas in the summer. So if you go from May until September, you're competing in Europe, there's a lot of money to be made, and it's a dollar-based business.
So we've got to start somewhere, and thank goodness you are the seed that's been planted to try and help this along. But I guess money is important, but so is government participation. Our new Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture, he seems to have a lot to say. Is he putting his weight behind this?
100%. He is involved. I update him on a weekly basis, the Minister of Sport, Minister of Basic Education, as well as ASA. You know, they see this as a project that they've put their full weight behind without any sort of interference, if that's the right word to use. They've said, right, go and run this program, get it up and going. SuperSport is partners, Adidas, Southern Sun, you know, we've got some great partners that have come on board, a Quell Dairy Maid, and it's just really about giving these kids an opportunity to compete and giving them a hope of showing them this is what athletics is about.
Tell us how the series works.
So we go to 9 provinces. We go to all 9 provinces and we host a meeting. All the schools are invited. Entry is free. They don't pay to enter, which then allows every school the opportunity. We have our events of the 100, 200, 400, 800, 1500, long jump, shot put, and javelin. Just really, again, we're taking out barriers to entry. So if a school doesn't have a set of hurdles, it's okay. We don't have hurdles at our event. We don't have to have specialist coaches for that. But most kids can get out there and run 100, a 200, a 400, an 800, and a 1500. So that is the focus. We crown the best boys' school and the best girls' school. And those schools come to the grand final. And then ultimately we'll hand over a trophy to the best boys' school and the best girls' school in the country.
And I guess the fact that you've got super sport schools behind it, I mean, that must be an incentive for these kids to say, oh, look, I can get myself on TV.
Yeah, 100%. It's not even super sport schools, it's super sport. Super sport are the big drivers behind this. So we're actually on channel 209. Even schools are streaming the product, and we try to make it as easy and accessible to everyone to watch. But the big partner area is actually super sport, not even super sport schools.
Well, that's amazing because, I mean, we're talking about a massive broadcaster, and I guess it takes you right across Africa. I know it's still in its infancy, but I mean, this could develop into an African school event.
I mean, look, we're in year 1, but already the mind is planning 3-4 years down the line here. And it's exactly what we're thinking is what do we give this winning school as an incentive? Do we send them overseas? Is there competition? I was talking to World Athletics over the weekend around, is there a schools competition in Europe that we could send the winning teams to? You know, there's so much opportunity that we want to give these kids and as an incentive. So again, nothing confirmed, but there are definitely talks happening. There's definitely talks of having, you know, an African winners series, you know, so the best schools from Botswana or, you know, a South African schools team gets selected from this. You know, so many discussions happening, but let's see where it takes it.
And the buy-ins from the schools and from the districts, I mean, are you getting huge support from them? I guess when you look back a year or 2 or 3 ago, there was really nothing like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this from a buy-in point of view, there are some districts that are very good. We've got 30, 40 schools involved. We want to grow that to 60 schools. And even beyond that, we don't want to limit ourselves. Obviously, with a limited program, we open ourselves up to having more schools because we don't have as many technical events. But we want to grow this to, you know, as many schools as we possibly can. Today, we're close on 30 in the Free State. You know, Hartswater, where in the Northern Cape, we had, I think, 34 schools compete. What an incredible event that was. You know, Hartswater High School. I mean, I don't know how many of our listeners actually know Hartswater or where Hartswater is, but I learned very quickly. Got there, and not a grass track, not a tartan track, but an old dirt track. You know, the Thursday night, we were flying combis around the track to flatten it out. The track got marked on the Friday, and Saturday we had over 30 schools come and compete. You know, 600-700 kids, you know, from a district or a province that hasn't seen a lot of, you know, big athletics, hasn't been broadcast by SuperSport. And suddenly we've changed that. Those kids were excited. I mean, they honestly, I mean, one of the biggest attractions for them was that they were going to be on SuperSport. And, you know, it's such an amazing story to see that.
There must be some unbelievably rough diamonds out there. I mean, you look at the Kenyans, Ethiopians, and the Ugandans who, I guess, run to school, run home from school. And unfortunately, in our country, there's a lot of that as well. Have you already early picked up that there could be another Matthew Quinn and other top names out there?
We saw some incredible talent coming out of Diepsloot Combined High School last week in Gauteng. They sent a team. You know, they really wanted to compete in it. The one kid won the javelin. He, you know, never competed in a big stadium before, barefoot, board shorts, threw the javelin, won the competition. And, you know, his distance, you know, if he starts working and he gets a coach, there's something there. You know, there's a talent there. You know, in the middle distance events, we saw some incredible talent coming through. So, yes, and that's one of the biggest things we want to see is these kids that are given an opportunity, because again, entry is free, to come and compete and suddenly compete against kids that are training and look at themselves and go, hang on, there's an opportunity here for me. You know, I think there's a story of, you know, my favorite story is of Prudence Tefadiso, who Olympic finalist last year in the 800. You know, she was from a small village in Limpopo. She went through the school system. Samuel Sapeng actually spotted some talent in her, invited her into the Tux Sports High School, And 6 years later, she's an Olympic Games finalist. And without the school's program, we would never have found it. And that is exactly why we want to keep driving the schools program, because there is talent out there. And Prudence is only starting. And if her story takes her to an Olympic medal or a world champs medal, that is just one story of, I think, hundreds that we could be telling through this program.
You're listening to the edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. We'll have more for you after these.
Hey, Unique Tribe, ready to unlock new insights with family, relationships, and business constellations with our monthly workshops.
Join us on Saturday, 1st of March 2025 in Northcliffe, Randburg. We will send the address when you book.
The session runs from 1 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. It's 850 to constellate and 250 to participate, with beverages included.
Connect with @KingoSiladi, @Ignaluminescence, and @Unique Yet Connected for an afternoon of transformation.
Book your spot now. Call 079-913-4934 or email inaluminescence.kinga@gmail.com.
Spaces are limited, so don't wait. Secure your place today.
See you there.
Hi, I'm Louis Karpas. Join me for a preview of this weekend's sporting action. It's the SA Open Golf Championship, it's the FA Cup and United Rugby Championship action, with a couple of local derbies to look forward to. That's From the Boardroom to the Locker Room, 6 to 6:30 Central African Time. The nice thing about it is, unlike the other major sports where you need an oval to play cricket and a big rugby field and poles to play rugby and a hockey field to play hockey, you just need a 100-meter stretch and a little bit of land, and you can put some lines down, and participation is as free as it gets in any sport.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of athletics. I mean, look, some of the field events, you need some technicality, but basic running, we all do it. Every single kid runs every single day playing, whether it's at lunch break or after school or, doing hockey or netball. Athletics is the fundamental of everything. We sprint to our car because we forget something. We run between classes, so the fundamentals, we can do this anywhere. So the distance athletes can run on a road. The track athletes can do, like you said, on a small field, they can run. They can find 30, 40, 50 meters and do some sort of training and exercise to make them fast to be able to compete.
Let's just talk about who else is getting involved here, because it's all good and well that Matthew Quinn, gold medalist, is involved. But I guess you need a heck of a lot of support. Minister of Sport, Arts and Culture and Minister of Basic Education involved. But are any of the other ex-athletes involved, and have you approached any of them, and are they willing to come and help?
Not a conversation I've had yet. I mean, I think it was just, let's get this up and running. We've got, through the production guys and through Supersport, we've got back sports who bring ex-athletes in who understand the sport to do all the television work. Great program. And then Alyssa Connolly, who South African sprinter, went to the game. She's on the mic. She's the face of the competition. Outside of that, from a planning point of view, in every province I work with, like a Sean Bounds, or down in Cape Town, Rashwal Samai, trying to get them. They're involved in the school system. They're involved in athletics in their provinces, and just working with them, trying to get them to buy in.
So Matthew, has this been mirrored on any other way it's being done anywhere else in the world?
Well, I actually looked at something that I used to compete at when I was back in like the early 90s. Very similar concept. Again, trying to find, the best schools and trying to get that, drive school athletics. And then we also looked at what they're doing in the NCAAs. Very Americanized. We can't take a lot from them, but there is, because American sport is just massive and big and just does things so well. So we've looked at what works there and try to implement it here. I've looked at what I experienced as we still talk about when we have brides with old friends and, ex-athletes. We talk about those days. So those events meant something to us. So we're trying to recreate that for this generation of school athletes. The NCAAs are an incredible program, but we can't implement that in South Africa because we just don't have the facilities or the budgets. I think we look at different needs. That is very high-end, very sort of elite athletes. And we want to see the best schools, but we also want to give every school the opportunity to come and compete. Remember that, there's some very small schools. They've got one or two really good athletes, but we want to build in every single school. So that school next year suddenly has 10 athletes competing, and there's an excitement about driving or competing at this event. And then we've got the bigger schools who could easily have entered 2 teams. So that's really where we're trying to find. Yes, we find the best schools, but also that sort of bringing in schools that don't have an opportunity to compete and saying, right, here's the opportunity, kids, go out, find your limelight.
That is something that really warms my heart, Matthew, by what you just said right now, because having broadcast for so many years and seeing the transition in South Africa, I sometimes say to myself, well, it just appears as though only the big schools get the opportunities, but you clearly have gone right to the roots of South African schools in this country. And you're not just looking at the great colleges and the Paul Roos's and the Paul Gyms of this world and the Kezes. That's something that really warms my heart. And I guess that's something that's very close to yours as well.
100%. I mean, this program, it's not an Elisa's program. It's not, and we did things very specifically. We said no entry fee. We made sure every school was open to enter. We did set 1 or 2 things where we want a minimum of 10 athletes to enter. So again, it's forcing the school to grow. Grow athletics and not just go, okay, well, we've got 1 athlete who's really good, send him, the rest of us will stay at home. No, we want 10 athletes. And out of that 10, we might find some incredible talent. We're a country that's diverse. We're a country that is massively big. And within our borders, we've got some incredible talent. And some of that talent just doesn't get noticed because they don't get an opportunity. So we want to give them that opportunity. We want to show them that this is what athletics is about. This is what happens when you run. If you train a bit more, who knows? I mean, the kids after the Gauteng leg, some of those kids came up to me and they were like, I ran bad today, but I'm going to train. I'm coming back next year and I'm going to break my record. I'm going to win this. The passion from these kids was just incredible. And when I leave a meeting and those are the remarks I hear, I absolutely love it.
Yeah, because I guess you, like every single athlete, whether it be a park run, a half marathon, a fun run, it's always my PB. I want to beat my personal best. I mean, that is something that you don't have in many of the other sports where you have that ability every single time you get out there to do better than the previous time you performed.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of athletics is, yes, you compete as an individual and your individual, but we naturally just want to improve. We always want to do that. So that's what track and field offers. But now we're doing it within a team environment where your performance helps your team win. So it's that conundrum. And it was always that, like if, for example, as an individual 100-meter runner, my success came in the 4x1. My real success came in that 4x1 when we won that medal. So as an individual, I had to work within a team. And that's the beauty of what we're trying to achieve here as well. Individuals working as a team to get their school on top of that podium.
I know it's in its infancy and it'll grow. I guess future-wise, getting universities involved, when you think about the collegiate system in America, I mean, scholarships are handed out left, right, and center for athletes that have got potential to go to universities in America. And we've got some amazing universities here and some amazing facilities for track and field at our universities. Will they buy in, do you think?
Yeah, I'm sure the universities would buy it. I haven't discussed it with them, but we don't have a strong university system at the moment. We have, I think, 1 or 2 major championships, but most of the university athletes, there is no big competition. There's no sort of this level of togetherness where they come and constantly compete. So it's an opportunity. I mean, universities is massive. So if these kids, can get bursaries into universities and there's the competition again, and we continue the cycle to getting them through 22, 23, 20, when they become senior athletes, then I think it's a perfect roadshow. So you've got high schools, then universities, and then producing international.
Matthew, it all sounds absolutely fantastic, and we wish you all the best. But it would be reminiscent of me to not ask you, while I've gone from the boardroom to the locker room, when you look at world athletics at the moment, and in particular the field that you were involved in, the sprint field, wouldn't you have thought by now, outside of the Frankie Fredericks and Akani Simbine, Africa should have or could have or should and might still produce the fastest man in the world, 100, 200?
Listen, I think if you look out for a young kid from Botswana, Tebogo Letsesi, I think that man is going to dominate sprinting. And, we've got Ferdinand from Kenya. You've got Akani. There's this crop of young South Africans coming through. I think definitely from an African point of view, there's Tebogo already won the 200 at the Olympics last year. So he's got his eyes set on becoming the fastest man in the world, dominating sprints, and is talented enough to do it. So I think Africa will hold that title very soon.
Well, we hope maybe one of your kids that comes out of primary school or even high school one day will lift the gold medal around his neck or her neck, and you can look back and say, I had something to do with that. Matthew Quinn, it's always lovely to have an ex-athlete and somebody who's putting something back into the sport on our program. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolute pleasure, and thanks for having me on the show.
Lovely stuff. That's tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. You heard Matthew. You run to your classroom. When you hear the bell and you worry that you're going to get punished, you run. You sprint. When you need to go to the bathroom because you've been crossing your legs, you run to the bathroom. When it rains, you run to your car, to your bus, or to your taxi. Why not make that your sport of passion? That's tonight's edition of From the Boardroom to the Locker Room. I'm not going to say I'm running out of here because that would be a lie, but I'm going to walk a little bit brisker than I walked in. Be nice to each other as always, and bye for now.